thank you very much for inviting me. I'm going to try to be very objective, and if you want a personal view from me, then you'll have to meet me for coffee afterwards, because I think this is probably not the appropriate place for me to do that. So I shall try to give you a reasonable rundown of science in England as it is at the moment. I've been involved for 35 years, and over these years we've put different adjectives in front of the word science. We've called it combined science, integrated science, coordinated science, contextualized science, applied science, vocational science. All of them really indicating an attempt to get deeper into how it might be taught and how it might be assessed.
Tehát megpróbál a Ken objektív véleményt megfogalmazni, úgyhogy ha bárki a személyes véleményére kíváncsi, akkor azt a kávészünetben tudja biztosítani. Nem hallatszik? Így most jó? Megpróbálom egy picit. Így jó? Köszönjük. Tehát ők mindenféle jelzővel ellátták már a természettudományt Angliában, ezek között látszott 3-at fölírva, integrált és kombinált és applied, vagyis alkalmazott és szakmai és stb. Ő most erről a 3 szintről fog beszélni, ahol ez a jelenleg combined science-nek hívott valami megjelenik.
To understand how we arrive at the way we teach science in the UK, or I should say England nowadays, because we're devolving responsibility, so I should say England, is there are 3 stages that's worth understanding if you're going to see the way in which we approach it. We have a core curriculum which is defined by the government, or the Department for Education at the government. We have qualifications which derive from that core, and I'll give you more information about those 3 awarding bodies and how that operates in a moment or two. And at the end of it, we have teaching and learning, and largely that's dependent upon the people in the classroom. One proviso there, if I may be allowed, and that is that assessment, which comes via the qualifications, is a huge driver to how the subjects are taught. I said I wasn't going to give personal views, so I'll stop there. So it does make a big difference. Okay, so the core curriculum...
Sorry, I had to translate that. Tehát a 3 szint, az egyik ugye az oktatási minisztérium, nevezzük mondjuk így, amelyik megszabja a tanterveket, vagy hát magasabb szinten azoknak egy részét. A másik azok a minősítő bizottságok, vagy testületek, hívjuk őket így, náluk nem államilag, nem állami intézmény ez, mint nálunk az oktatási hivatal, és nem is egy van belőlük, hanem 3, és ezek business alapúak, tehát üzleti alapon működnek, magánkézben vannak. Ezeket kell majd később még fogunk találkozni, tehát hoz konkrét példákat az ő megközelítéseikről, és a 3. szint az természetesen a tanároknak a szintje, ahogy az iskolákban a tanítás végül is megtörténik. Ez most ugye a tanterv maga. Tehát mit ír elő az oktatási minisztérium?
So the core is defined in something called the science programs of study for every subject in the UK, in England. Sorry, I'm going to keep saying the UK. In England, is defined by a program of study. Now, the way it works in the UK, I've just put up 2 KS stands for key stage, which is essentially 11 to 14-year-olds. Key stage 4, 14 to 16-year-olds. And the way in which it's defined is under 4 major headings. There's something called working scientifically, which is more or less the same at the 2 key stages. Subtle differences if you look, but more or less the same. And to me, it's the kind of glue that holds the whole thing together. It sort of weaves its way through the subjects, however they're taught, interdisciplinary or whatever it is. That's the glue that holds it together, perhaps. And then the rest of the content that's required to be included in a qualification is given quite simply under the headings of biology, chemistry and physics. And under each of those headings there are specific statements about what students should be able to do during those key stages.
Tehát ugye látjuk, hogy ezek tehát a különböző életkorokban vannak feltüntetve a tantervnek a szerkezete, ugye mindegyikben megjelennek a diszciplináris tartalmak, a 11-14 éveseknek is, és a 14-16 éveseknek is, és van egy, tehát working scientific, tehát egy olyan összefoglaló, áttekintő jellegű, szemléletformáló része is a tantervnek, hogy mit is jelent a természettudományos módon végzett munkakutatás, gondolkodás. És ez a két szinten természetesen különböző, de nagyjából hasonló szemléletmódot tükröz.
Where am I? They go slightly further. There's only one examination at age 16. We used to have one at 14 as well, but that's now disappeared, in my view, a good thing. And in addition to that guidance which I've already described, in terms of advice to the awarding organisations, those are the people that set the examinations, two pieces of advice I've picked out there because I think they're relevant. Number one, it provides the framework within which awarding organisations create the detail of the subject specifications. Okay, so that's why I say it's the core. You've got to ensure that that's covered in the qualification. There'll be more, there'll be other stuff, but you must cover that core. Lastly, there should be a minimum of 30% of each of biology, chemistry and physics. Now for me, that is probably the one major step forward, because when I was at school, I had to make a decision as to what to do when I was 14. I won't tell you what year that was. And I'd selected chemistry and physics and dropped biology. Bad move, in my view. Wish I hadn't had to do that. That is now no longer an option. So whatever you do, you now have to do the three sciences, if I can call them that, three sciences in equal measure.
Just a minute.
Yep.
Tehát az Oktatási Minisztérium egy iránymutatást ad a tanterven keresztül ezeknek a minősítő testületeknek, hogy minek kell benne foglaltatni, ugye a vizsgákban, a vizsgákon miket kell vizsgálni, milyen képességeknek a meglétét vagy hiányát, és ebből két fontos idézetet emelt ki a Ken. Az egyik az azt mondja, hogy ez csak egy keretet ad ahhoz, hogy ezek a minősítő testületek minek alapján, milyen irányok szerint, vagy milyen keretek között dolgozzák ki a részleteit a vizsgakövetelményeknek, és a másik pedig az idézet pedig azt mondja, ugye, hogy mind a három diszciplinának, itt most ugye biológia, kémia, fizika van megemlítve, feltétlenül legalább 30%-ban a diszciplináris tartalomnak meg kell jelennie. A Ken egy személyes megjegyzést fűzött ehhez, hogy ő neki annak idején, mikor ő volt ilyen idős, tehát 14-16 éves, akkor neki választani kellett, hogy mely két tárgynak a tartalmait tanulja, és ő kémiát és fizikát választott, és biológiát nem, és ezt később nagyon bánta. És még egy, hogy azt kell még tudnunk, hogy a kurzusok az iskolákban, ezt most én teszem hozzá, annak megfelelően vannak szervezve, sőt a tankönyvek is annak megfelelően vannak írva, elnézést a csúnya fogalmazásért, hogy melyik minősítő testületnek a vizsgájára készítik fel a gyereket. Tehát azt kell tudni ezekhez az idézetekhez még háttérinformációként, igen.
I have to say I'm already getting nervous because with the translation as well, 20 minutes is going to be really tight. Okay, so we need to do something to speed it up, I think, yes, otherwise it's not fair. Sorry. A pleasure. I won't talk too much about this. This is the situation for post-16, what you know as A-levels, and quite simply we have no national curriculum. We do have guidelines which are given to the awarding bodies or awarding organisations, and that core is about 60% of the qualification.
Jó, tehát 16 éves kor fölött már csak 60%-át szabják meg a tartalomnak, és ez ugye diszciplínák szerint van szintén megadva.
Okay, so qualifications are very different to Hungary, I'm guessing, because I think there's only one one body that sets the examination. In the UK, so, I keep saying that, blinking heck. In England, you can choose from three. It doesn't matter what they stand for, but there are three organisations. Is that okay?
Jó, szóval ez a három testület van, minősítő testület, és ezeknek a specifikációi közül fog most kiemelni néhányat.
I won't translate the first three bullet points, but they're actually come directly from the ex-Secretary of State for Education, Michael Gove, who in 2013 instituted a reform of GCSEs. I'm not going to read them out, but they were ambitious targets which they set, which, if you look at them, don't mean a great deal, really. Importantly, from 2016, nearly every student in England will study either biology, chemistry and physics, all three, so they get 3 GCSEs, or they do combined science, which is now the formal name for it, which is equivalent to 2 GCSEs. So they either do a lot of science, or they do 2/3 of it. But whichever they do, they must cover that programme of study which I indicated earlier on. And at A-level, they just do biology, chemistry and physics. Is that okay?
You don't want to say anything about the applied? Okay. Tehát a lényege az, mert az, hogy milyen célokat tűznek ki, hát szép célokat mindenki ki tud tűzni, viszont a lényeg az az, hogy a GCSE vizsgákon, ami ugye a 16 éves kori kötelező vizsga Angliában, és Angliáról van szó, mindig ezt kihangsúlyozza, mert ugye az nem azonos az Egyesült Királysággal. Tehát a diákok választhatnak, hogy biológia, kémia, fizikát tanulnak szétválasztott módon, vagy pedig ezt a bizonyos combined science, ami megfelel 2 GCSE vizsgának, tehát mintha 2 tárgyból tette volna le azt a 16 éves kori vizsgát, és akkor az A-level, ugye, ami a mi érettségünknek felel meg körülbelül, ugye az egyetemre való bekerüléshez, ott pedig kimondottan már külön vannak a tantárgyak, és úgy tanulják.
And the next one is a personal perspective, because I was heavily involved in it. That was the idea of applied science as a qualification. And for more than 20 years, we've been developing vocational applied science qualifications. They have now gone. That is not an option anymore. I think it's a pity, not because of the applied, but because one of the main themes of those qualifications was that there was a mix of assessment. It wasn't all done by an end-of-course written examination. Students could show what they can do in other ways. It was controversial, it depended on teacher professionality and so on, but I think it's disappointing that that's gone.
Hát ez azért mégiscsak egy személyes megjegyzés, neki nagy szív fájdalma, mert az alkalmazott természettudomány tárgynak a fejlesztéseiben nagyon benne volt, nagyon sok anyagot készített hozzá, de ez mostantól nem választható, ez eltűnt. Ő egyébként a Science diplomának, ezt nem mondta, de én mondom, a tudományos tanácsadója is volt annak idején, még az előző tehát politikai kormányzat alatt, és az is eltűnt a süllyesztőbe teljesen, rengeteg munkával. Tehát őneki ez nagy szívfájdalma, főként azért, mert nem csak egy egyszerű papíralapú vizsga volt a végén, hanem egy kombinált értékelés, tehát a kurzus ideje alatt is gyűjthettek az értékeléshez kvázi krediteket a gyerekek, és ez volt kombinálva a kurzus végén levő írott vizsgával. Ez részben ugye persze függött a tanárok professzionalizmusától is, hogy mennyire tudtak objektívek lenni, attól függetlenül ez egy sokkal kedvezőbb értékelési mód volt sok gyerek számára.
Right, no more translation, I'm afraid. I've got 4 minutes left.
Igen?
So no more, I'm sorry, but otherwise I'm not going to be able to get through. Okay, so each awarding organisation, there are 3, offers GCSE biology, chemistry, physics. They also offer combined science. One of the organisations, AQA, offers 2, Synergy and Trilogy. I'll explain that in a moment or two. This organisation has just 1, this organisation has 2. So there are 5 specifications that you can choose from. The arguments are traditional versus non-traditional. Trilogy, double science, with AQA, is a traditional approach, as opposed to, I would use the term context-led, probably, more than anything else. Important, this one, if I can say so. One size does not fit all. I've been teaching for an awful long time, and if there's one thing I know, is that one size does not fit all. If you want to learn the most about your students, you have to try to assess them and teach them and get them to learn in different ways. Inevitably, the availability and preferences of teachers, though arguably just as important, if not more important, to match the teaching to the styles of learning of the students. I'm not going to go on with the other ones there. Essentially, the difference, as I say, is the content is described in trilogy, just in terms of chemistry, biology, and physics. In synergy, it's slightly different. It's divided, and this is the nearest we've got, I think, to some kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, integrated, coordinated, whatever you want to call it. Those are just the top, you don't need those are just topic headings. This is the key thing. With synergy, with one of them, so one of the courses you just do chemistry, biology, physics, and you talk like that. In this one, you do two subjects in effect. You do, I forgot what life and environmental sciences, which is strand 1, and physical sciences, which is strand 2. And the idea is that two teachers would teach it, and in parallel, if you like, it's kind of double helixes there just for effect, I think, really. But in parallel, they teach those two strands. So that's the nearest I think we've got to in any way combining the sciences. I'm not going to talk about these ones because it's much the same thing. I think this is important, to say the least. Teaching and learning, we talk too much about assessment, too much about qualifications, too much about core curriculum. We don't talk enough about teaching and learning. So keep calm, your school needs you. Who teaches it? This is a quick one for you. I managed to get this information just before I left England on Tuesday night or Wednesday, whenever it was. I lose track. And this is a relevant point. This will strike some notes, I think. This was from a guy who spent, well, I will read it out, 25 years of teaching in Kent, which is in southeast England, in both selective and non-selective schools. Plus, he was an advisor in the county for 2 years, and now he works for one of those awarding organisations. And he says, Key Stage 3, 11 to 14-year-olds, is usually taught by one teacher, and very rarely by 2 or more. In contrast, Key Stage 4 is taught by 2 or more teachers, more often than not. Physics teachers are I won't go on to that one, but it's about using physics as the best resource. You know, you can't afford to, if you like. There aren't enough physics teachers to give them a whole combined science course to teach. You use them to do the bits of physics that you need for the various groups that are studying it. Okay, something which I think is really important and has a good side and a bad side. Am I doing nearly there? One. We give an incredible amount of support to teachers. The textbooks, schemes of work, lesson plans, prepare practicals, formative assessment, revision guides, and I've written these things and edited them, and it's a huge amount. The downside, I believe, is it takes some of the professionalism away from teachers. So you're almost given not a qualification, but a course to teach. It's almost laid out as a course. So I'm going to finish with this one. Closing thoughts. Generally, a teacher's given a specification and asked to teach it. Fine. Choice. How you teach it is down to the science department and is down to the teacher. Presumably, the aim is to motivate and enable each student to reach their full potential. I'd ask you one simple question, or your science department. What do you want those students to be able to do when they leave you? Now, I've asked this, I was a vice principal of a big FE college in the UK, and I've asked that lots of times, and you have to prize out that it's a bit more than just passing exams. Lastly, what I do think you need, and this is a personal view now, is a coordinated science team. That's a big difference, I think. I think that they should coordinate their teaching, including 3 ways. The order within which topics are taught. For years, I found that biology taught certain aspects of organic chemistry before it was even introduced into a chemistry course. So there was a kind of a mismatch there. The language and terminology used, chemical potential versus osmotic pressure, you know, these sorts of things. And importantly, and maybe this doesn't happen in Hungary, but I sense it does in England a little bit, to recognise and appreciate the sciences that they do not teach. So let's not have, oh, the biologists don't know that because the chemists do it this way. Or let's not have the physics saying, well, no, the atom's not like that. It's like this. So I think coordinated science team is the key to combined science, however you want to define it. Thank you very much.